Now that you've seen the basic Photoshop interface and how to get around, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can customize it a little more and how we can work with the Photoshop workspace. So go ahead and open up any image that you have, and you can see here that we have the Basic Essentials workspace open, which is all the basic things that you might need to start working in Photoshop. Now again, we can change this by going to the top and clicking on Window, and going down to Workspace, and we have different settings that we can use here. So we have our 3D workspace for creating any type of 3D imagery. We can go down and do graphic and web, which is a lot of great presets such as type and color that we can work with. We can go down and change it to motion, which is for motion graphics and working with a timeline. We have painting, so if we're doing any type of painting with brushes and colors, we have all of those options here. And then finally, we have photography. So when we're working with photos, we have different types of panels and presets set up for us. I'm going to go ahead and change it back to the Essentials default workspace. And in this workspace, you see a bunch of panels on the right-hand side. Now with these panels, we can customize these, we can move them around, resize them, and change them any way that we want to. So here we have a color panel and a swatches panel, and these make up a panel group. Both of these two panels are in this one panel. Same thing with properties and adjustments, they're located in this panel, and then layers, channels, and paths. We also see our Learn panel for learning more about Photoshop, and our Libraries panel. Now we can go ahead and we can minimize these panels by clicking on these double arrows in the top right hand corner, and it will collapse them to icons. Now we can see we have the Learn and Libraries collapsed, and if we want to reopen any of those, we can left click and it will go ahead and open it up to the left hand side. If we click on the arrows there, it'll collapse that back into its icon. And if we want to open up the main panel with both of these open, we can click on the double arrows that are now pointing to the left, and it will open those panels up for us. We can do this with any of the panels, and this gives us more room as we begin working on our image or on our file. There was one that was already collapsed, and if we click on that and open it up, we can see it's a history panel. So let's go ahead and open these back up to the way they were. And I will show you how we can go ahead and close some of these panels. So let's say that we don't need the Learn and the Libraries panels. Well, we can just right click and select Close, and it will close that panel out. If you right click and select Close Tab Group, it's actually going to close both of these together. If I just select Close, it's only going to close out that one panel. Let's go ahead and close the Libraries panel. And when we do, it completely gets rid of that right side panel and moves everything over for us. So now we have some more room to work with. We can also adjust these panels around by resizing them. So if you hover over any of the dividers, you can see it turns to a double arrow, and we can just click and drag and resize these panels as we see fit. So maybe we don't need as much color room, so we can move this up, or we can move the panel down and resize these as needed. You may also want to move some of these panels around. So you can click and select one of the tabs of the panels, and if I start to move that as I'm holding down and dragging, you can see that I can do a couple things. I can separate this panel and drop it out here into the open as I work. Or if I move it around the panels and the dividers, you can see some blue lines and boxes showing up. By doing this, you can drop this panel anywhere that you would like. So for instance, I can drop it right here on this panel bar, and it will add it into this column. So now I can select color here, I can open up that panel, and at the bottom, you can see we have our color panel. If I move that around into another panel, say this one, it adds it as another tab at the end. So now we have layers, channels, paths, and color. And you can also bring and move that into in between panels in the horizontal space. So let's go ahead and put that back. And we can reorganize these if we want to by just moving these tabs over. Now in Photoshop, there's also a lot of panels that aren't even being shown right now. So let me get this back to where we start. And if I go up to the top and I click on the window button, you'll see a whole list of panels here that you can use. So you can see we have our color panel highlighted and it has a check mark showing that it's being shown, our layers, our properties, and some of these panels have shortcut keys like F7 for layers and F8 for info. So you might want to learn some of these if you're using them often, such as if you're using color all the time, you might want to learn the F6 shortcut key so that you can pull that panel up immediately. Now, if I click on any of these panels, it'll go ahead and add it to one of the panel panes on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to select brush, and you can see that brush settings and brushes have been added to this panel. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that so that you can see the icons here. And we'll go ahead and click on the double arrows, and now you can see that we have the brush and brush settings at the bottom. So if I go ahead and resize this, we have all of our brushes and our brush settings as a panel group to work with. So if I want to close these, I can right click and hit close tab group, and it'll close those together. Again, I can go to window and select any of these other panels that I would like to open. So if I click on paragraph, it'll drop that in here. And then I can always click and move that panel around. I can even put it out and let it float by itself if I want to just work on it right here, and then click the exit button when I'm done with it. So you can go through and you can reorganize all of these panels as you see fit. You can resize any of these windows and move them around. And then once you have them set up how you want, you can save this as a workspace, as your personal workspace, so that you can access it later on and have just the panels and features that you want inside Photoshop. Now to do that, we just go back up to Window, we go to Workspace, and we can do New Workspace. This will allow us to create a new workspace, give it a name, and then it'll add it here, and later on when we select that, it'll have that saved workspace. If at any point we don't like it, we can delete that workspace. And if we really get lost, we can always click on Reset Essentials and it'll bring everything back to the way it looks when you first start Photoshop. So keep in mind that this also works for other panels such as the toolbar. So I can left click and drag the toolbar out of there, and I might want to move it to the right hand side of the screen and work this way, and that allows me to do that. So you can adjust these panels in the workspace any way that you see fit and then save that out. And then once you begin working, you might find better methods of moving panels around, and you can save out those workspaces to make your workflow go a little smoother.